This video is about factoring trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c using the AC method, and this is specific when a does not equal 1, when your leading coefficient is not 1. Listed here at the bottom are the steps we'll take. Number 1 is to find the product a times c. So let's do that with the first one. The first thing we want to do is find the product a times c. So we take, this is a and this is c. So we take 6 times negative 35 and we multiply that together, and we find out that that is negative 210. You can use your calculator or just your brain to figure out that 6 times negative 35 is negative 210. That's a times c. Then we want to find this is step 2, find two factors of a times c that add up to be b. So in our case, b is 11. Okay, the fact that our c is negative 35, or that a times c is negative 35, the only way that can happen is by multiplying a positive times a negative. So we know one of the factors is going to be a positive and one of the factors is going to be negative, and it needs to add up to 11. So we know that the bigger factor is going to be positive. So negative 210, you think about the different numbers you could multiply together to get negative 210. And this is coming to mind. 21 and 10 are two factors. 21 and negative 10. 21 times negative 10 gives me negative 210. 21 minus 10 gives me positive 11. So these are the right numbers to use. So whenever a is not equal to 1, step 3 says to rewrite the middle term. We rewrite the middle term into what the numbers we chose this to be, 21x minus 10x. 21x minus 10x is 11x, so that's going to be okay. We copy down the first term, 6x squared. Then we want to write down these two terms. The order that we write these down does not matter. I'm going to say plus 21x minus 10x, and then you copy down the last term, minus 35. The last step that I have written over here, number 4, says factor by grouping. So we finish this off by factor by grouping. So when we do this, we group the first two terms together, and then we group the second two terms together. If a negative happens to fall right here, we include it in the parentheses. Now you factor out the greatest common factor that you can find from 6x squared and 21x. So we can definitely pull an x out, and I think the biggest number we could pull out is a 3. So take a 3x out of the first set of parentheses, and we'd be left with 2 times x plus a 7. Now, if a negative falls right here, we have to factor out the negative plus anything else we could. I see a 5 and a 10 and a 35, so I'm going to pull out a 5. Negative 5. When you factor out a negative, it has the effect of reversing the signs that are inside the parentheses. So if I factor out negative 5 from 10x, I'm going to be left with a positive 2x plus a 7. When I factor out negative 5 from negative 35, I get positive 7. This is not a coincidence that these two terms match. It's because we picked the right factors, negative 10x and 21. So now we factor out 2x plus 7, and that leaves us with 3x minus 5. So that's number 1 factored. If we look at number 2, we have 8x squared plus 22x plus 15. We're going to take the product a times c. So in this case, it's 8 times 15. If we multiply 8 times 15, we find that that equals to 120. So we need to find two factors of 120 that add up to be b, which in this case is 22. Okay, you think about different factors of 12 and 120, and this one doesn't have to be that difficult. 12 times 10, I see 12 times 10. The fact that 120 is positive and the sum is also positive means that the factors that we find will both have to be positive. So I'm looking for two numbers I could add together to get 22. 12 times 10 is 120. 12 plus 10 is 22. So those are good numbers. Now we want to rewrite the middle term, 22x. We're going to rewrite it into 12x plus 10x because these are the two numbers we got to work. Copy down the 8x squared. Copy down the 15. And now we have 4 terms. We're going to finish this off by factor by grouping. Group the first 2 terms, group the last 2 terms, pull out the greatest common factor from 8x squared and 12x. That's going to be 4x. We're left with 2x plus 3. Factor out the greatest common factor from 10x and 15. I see a 5. We're left with 2x plus 3. These terms match. So this factors into 2x plus 3 times 4x plus 5. Okay, the third one that I chose to look at is 12x cubed minus 29x squared plus 14x. This does not appear to be in the right form. However, the very first step to every factoring problem is to factor out the greatest common factor, if there is one. There was not one in number 1 or number 2, but in number 3, these have a greatest common factor we could pull out. We can pull out an x from each of these. And once I do that, I'm left with 12x squared minus 29x plus 14. Now I'm going to use the AC method to factor this portion right here in the parentheses. A is 12, B is negative 29, C is 14. So A times C will equal to 12 times 14. And 12 times 14 is equal to 168. I want to find 2 factors of 168 that multiply to 168 and that add up to be B, which is negative 29. In this situation, I need to multiply 2 things together that make a positive, but when they add, they have to make a negative. The only way that can happen is to multiply a negative times a negative. All right, so 168 I'm not that familiar with, so I'm going to mess around with 168 and see what kind of factors are inside of it. I'm going to start breaking it down into its prime factorization. I see it's even number, so I know 2 can go into it. 2 can go into it 84 times. And 2 is prime. And in 84, I'm going to divide this again by 2. 2 times 42. 42 can be broken down into 2 times 21. Finally, we hit a number that I know the factors of 3 and 7 are factors of 21. So the prime factorization for 168 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. I want to find 2 factors of 168 that add up to be 29. What I know is that the only way I can add 2 numbers together and make it be odd is to add an even plus an odd. That's the only way that happens. So I group these in 2 groupings. If I multiply 3 times 7, I get another odd number, 21. If I multiply 2 times 2 times 2, I get an 8. So I'm going to see what happens. This worked out nicely because 8 plus 21 is 29, and these factors are going to work. If I had not hit the right combination right from the start, I would keep grouping these in 2s. I might try, say, if I didn't get the right answers, and this is right, but if I didn't get it, I would say, okay, well maybe I need an odd, so maybe I'll try 3 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8 times 3, 24 plus 7, and that's going to give me 31, which is not 29, so that one didn't work, but that's the idea. So negative 8 times negative 21 will give me a positive 168. Negative 8 plus negative 21 will give me negative 29. All right, this x for now that I've pulled out, I'm just going to write this little line to remember that it's there while I work on factoring what's in here. Copy down the first term, 12x squared, rewrite the middle term into negative 8x minus 21x, and then copy down the last term, plus 14. Factor by grouping, group the first 2 and the last 2. The greatest common factor from the first set of parentheses is going to be a 4x. We are left with 3x minus 2. If there's a negative here, you got to factor out the negative plus anything else. I see a 7 in both of these. I'll pull out a 7, leaving me with positive 3x minus 2. It changes the sign when you factor out a negative. this will factor into 3x minus 2 times 4x minus 7. And then I see that I have drawn this line for some reason, and the reason is I need to put that x on there at the end. So that is correctly factored. That's factor by using the AC method is what that is.